Welcome everyone to Professional Pioneers with Provision Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Muhammad Junaid Ishmael, and as you may well know, Provision Alliance NGO has set its sights on eradicating unemployment, helping the youth discover and forge their dream careers, and propelling them into becoming the future leaders of industry that our country so desperately needs. This podcast is inspired to help aspiring professionals understand and discover the careers they may well go into. Have you ever found yourself asking, how do I become a doctor or a lawyer? How do I start a business? Where do I study? And how do I get funding? These are some of the questions we will be answering on our podcast with our variety of guests who come from humble beginnings and have inspirational stories of how they've overcome the obstacles. And here is where they will share their advice and wisdom they've gotten along the way. Good day everyone, and welcome to Professional Pioneers with Provision Podcast. Today we have an amazing guest with us, one of my closest friends. Consider him a brother. His name is Zakariya Baboo. So where our journey started, we actually met in high school at Wyman Boys. I was the only boarder at the school and a Muslim boarder, and he was the only day boarder, so naturally we became friends. And since then, he's been with me through all my difficult times, and I take a lot of inspiration from him. So he works as a lawyer currently at Athlone Magistrates Court. And we're just going to speak to him about his journey. He's going to give us some background and tell us about what law is all about and share his experiences in law. So Zach, it's lovely to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. Before I proceed, I'm also Muslim, so that's why we gravitated
yes,
to
no,
just to clarify. Firstly, thank you for having me here. The organization that you are solely running and managing is really great. There are so many lives that you have benefited thus far, and I hope that only good things continue to happen and that you are able to assist more kids and take them out of the cycle of poverty and allow them to reach the goals which they set for themselves. So yes, as you've stated, my name is Zakariya Baboo. I'm an admitted attorney. I'm currently practicing as a prosecutor at Athlone Magistrates Court. I never foresaw myself in this field, to be honest. From as far back as I can remember, I always foresaw myself being a professional cricketer. I really loved my cricket. I grew up in Buka with my mother's family. My grandfather was really into cricket. He played cricket up until he couldn't anymore, practically, as well as his son. So cricket has always been something I've been exposed to. And due to cricket, I was fortunate enough to get a cricket bursary to Wyman Boys, where we eventually met. And through cricket, I've been able to experience diverse cultures and communities, interact with different people, and it's helped mold me into the person I am. The difficulties and challenges and how to overcome them. It might not be the same challenges, but it teaches you how to deal with challenges that come your way and how to persevere and kind of fight through it. The reason for me bringing this up and talking about the cricket is that when you're young and when you, especially during high school, you kind of think that you have it all figured out, or you have this end goal which you hope to achieve. But life is so uncertain and it is fluid. It changes every single day. So even though you put your mind to something, if it doesn't work out, it is really disconcerting. It kind of makes you feel like you fail, but there is a plan, and that plan might be better than the one you were hoping for.
That's so true.
So yeah, that's a bit about me.
It's really amazing how you can focus on this one end goal, and you feel like your whole life is preparing you for that, with your background. And then you find that when you change your path, or when you make a different decision, all of those skills that you learned prepared you for this new path as well.
Exactly.
And it really speaks to how like your skills that you can learn in life aren't just for one specific thing.
Yeah.
And I commend you on that adaptability, because a lot of people, they have this idea of what they want in life, and when it doesn't work out, or if it doesn't work out, they feel like a failure and they give up, and that's something we really don't want for our students.
Exactly. On that point, failure is probably one of the most underrated things that could possibly happen. If you only experience success in your life at some stage, that's what life throws you curveballs, and you'd rather want to experience it when you are younger, because then you have people you can kind of go to, hopefully, and people who can help you navigate through this uncertainty. Whereas if you're older and now it's the first time that you're experiencing something negative in your life, it is really difficult to come back from that. So one should always, you shouldn't be discouraged by failure. Everyone has failed. I mean, you are a doctor, but there are certain things that had happened in your life where you felt like you failed, but you've overcome it, and here you are today. And it is an iota of life. It is something you just have to kind of think to yourself, in 10 years time, what would my view on this particular thing be? And then it isn't as overwhelming as we make it out to be.
That's so true. I think failure is something that immobilizes a lot of people, that fear of failure. Especially what some of the students we have. So Zach is a mentor as well, and so we have students from our pilot school, Portland's High School, which we mentor. And something I've picked up, I don't know if you've noticed this with your mentee as well, but a lot of the time when we have to set goals, he struggles, and that's because he fears failing, and so he doesn't want to set the goal and then disappoint himself. And even outside of goal setting, when there's an opportunity, he shies away from it because he's like, look, I want things to be perfect, or I want things to work out a specific way. And so if I don't foresee that happening, or if I feel like I'm lacking in skill, or whatever the case may be, I won't initiate that. And so one of the main points we try to cover in our conversations was understanding that failure is a part of success. It's not possible to succeed in whatever goal you have the first time around, especially in long-term, bigger goals,
Yes.
And so understanding that failure is a building block of success, that change of perspective, makes a huge difference in actually being able to go ahead and make the decisions that are required to be successful.
Yes.
On that note, so you wanted to do cricket, you ended up in law.
Yes.
Can you give us an idea of how that happened? On that note, so
Before I get to that point.
you wanted to do cricket, you ended up in law.
Yes.
Can you give us an idea of how that happened?
Yes. Before I get to that point, just on the previous point that we were busy speaking about, what helps is you kind of have this big goal that you are working towards, but one should not forget to celebrate the small successes. Maybe just even doing well in a quiz that doesn't count for marks, or a test that you need to be celebrating, otherwise life will be really, really sad. But on the point of how did I come across law, so I was fortunate enough, my sister had briefly studied law, and so that was my kind of first encounter. I also have a family member who had studied law and had finished it. But what really drew my attention to it were two cases that popped up. It was the Oscar Pistorius case, policy, and as well as the Van Brent Dog case. It's really gruesome cases to kind of, but it was just interesting to kind of figure out how, especially someone like Oscar Pistorius, life was going really great, and he just ended up doing what he did. So, and then I delved into it, and what I realized with by watching that case really closely is that the law is not really just centered on the law. It kind of expects you to go a bit further, so they'd have to call a medical doctor and ask the medical doctor who did the post-mortem, so how did this person die? So you have to really learn a lot more about other fields, so you're not really just limited to the law. So that was my encounter. I haven't looked back since. What I've realized since encountering this is that you really also get to help people. I really enjoy helping people. I always knew I liked to debate. I like to help people. I've now learned to serve justice. That does not mean punishing people. It means rehabilitating, kind of reconciling people's differences, having people come and discuss things. It's not just about punishment. It is also about helping families through difficulties. So that is the role that we play. It seems as if the law is very black and white, but once you're in there and you have a first-hand experience, you realize it's much more diverse than that.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite interesting that you kind of got to discover that helpful nature in yourself through getting into law, because I think it's starkly different to being a professional sportsman. You know, in different ways you are inspiring people and things like that, but I think it's knowing you personally. I think law is better suited to you as a person. I think it probably gives more to you and feeds more to you when you have that opportunity to change someone's life.
Yes.
And I think for me, even from my own personal journey, I've always wanted to do surgery, right? And when I really introspected about why I wanted to do surgery, a lot of it was recognition from my colleagues, from people outside of the field. And although in medicine, the reason I chose medicine is because you get to help people irrespective, but I'm more now inclined towards psychiatry because although amongst colleagues it's not seen as this like grandiose field, but coming from Mitchell's Plan and working now in Mitchell's Plan and seeing the difference I can make, being able to really get to know people, build a sense of rapport and trust, it's such an amazing thing, and I think law and medicine has that in common. But just to come back to law in itself, so you said you're a prosecutor, right?
Yes.
So then I'm assuming there's defense as well, and my understanding is prosecuting and defense in your case is criminal law, and then there's civil law as well. So could you maybe explain like the fields within law and how people kind of gravitate towards that?
So it's really broad. When you start studying, it's just a kind of surface level kind of training that you get, or theory that you get, and it doesn't particularly mold you. Same with medicine. When you're done with medicine, you're a general practitioner. I'm assuming you're not specialized in any particular field, and the same goes for law. So you start out to do introductory kind of modules, where after it starts becoming a bit more specific. So you get criminal law and you get civil law. Criminal law is just crimes that are committed and we prosecute that. So I'm a prosecutor. A person will go to the police station. They will say, on this day, this person had hit me and whatever, and the police officer will then take their statement, put it in the docket, bring the docket to court. We will then read through the docket, see whether or not there's sufficient merits, whether it is an actual offence that is stipulated in that statement, and then we decide to prosecute. You also get defense attorneys in criminal law. They defend the accused persons. They generally work for themselves. It is more private. Whereas prosecutors, we are employed by the state. We're employed by the government. In civil is more to do with evictions, contract law, rental collections, all of these. It's very vast. It's very broad. So when you're done with law, you don't actually know what it is that you want to become. If you want to become an attorney, you study your 4 or 5 years at the university, whereafter you then have to do 2 years of what they call articles at a firm, and in this year you're supposed to be getting practical experience, kind of hands-on experience of the law. You start applying all that theory that you've learned, and in that time you also write board exams. It's about 4 board exams that you have to write. Once you pass that, you become an admitted attorney. It's generally at this stage that you kind of know. Like I said earlier, there's no surety in life. I don't even know at this stage if this is what I want to do. I know I love it, but I could in the future decide to do something completely different within the law. So yeah, that's kind of basically what the law is about.
I think that's quite similar to medicine, and I think also other careers. From my perspective, like when I was in high school, and I'm sure you could agree with this, like you think of a career and you don't really know exactly what it entails. You kind of know the general things, and even though you might do a job shadow or you might do some research online, you don't fully grasp like what are the opportunities within that space and how your personality and your life experience goes with that. So I think a lot of people who graduate and go into that working world and start to realize, well, the perspective they had on what that thing is actually not what it is in reality, you know. I think that can be a difficult thing for a lot of people. But also going from high school to university, that can also be a very difficult transition. So from your perspective, you know, what was your idea of what it would be like to study law? And then what was it like studying law at UWC and kind of going from first year to fourth year? What are the type of things that you learn and do?
So I preconceived ideas in the sense that many people told me once you get to university, there's so much freedom, there's no oversight, and that's exactly what I had experienced at UWC. So I didn't know how voluminous the content would have been. So that was my experience. I saw that it was really onerous and it was really voluminous. It was really onerous in the sense that there is no oversight. It is you. You are merely a number. When you get there, you don't even have a name. You have a student number. That's how they refer to you. So if you don't go to class, there's no register. Maybe in tutorials there's register, but nobody's going to ensure that you are going to class. Nobody's going to ensure that you are doing your assignments. There's no detention. There's no punishment. The punishment is that you wasted your money or the person's money. So there is a lot of responsibility on the student to ensure that they persevere and they get through it. It is voluminous because there are a lot more modules and they're very diverse. The one doesn't really play into the other. So you could have 4 different exams in 1 week, which are completely different to one another, and they all have their own textbooks and their own, which is quite a bit. So my experience, first I had many challenges along the way, which kind of led me not to be able to go to campus from about 2nd year to about final year. But it actually worked in my favor. The reason being is that first year, there is that transition, you're kind of finding your feet, you're trying to navigate through this unknown. And I failed the module in first year. And from second year to final year, I then never failed the module again. The reason being that I was at home, and while everyone else was either in class or fooling around, I was actually doing work. So I'd set aside modules I would do every day and put 2 to 3 hours of work on that module with no distractions, no one coming to me and telling me, oh no, let's go shoot pool or let's go play dominoes. And it's really difficult because we also have this innate kind of feeling of wanting to fit in, and it's kind of difficult when you make friends with people who maybe aren't studying what you're studying, because now your classes are different. So they'll go to their class and you free that period, and the next period you have class and they free, and they're like, yo, but I'm free now, let's chill. So you really have to have boundaries and take your life seriously, because nobody else will. And the main saying that came out of UWC is that the first year of university is the best 2 years of your life. So that explains it. So that's kind of the experience that I had.
So it did kind of work in your favor not to be on campus?
It did, but I would not suggest that you don't go to campus. I was fortunate enough to have a few friends who would take notes for me and would send it through. Because a lot of the time the lecturers would send out skeleton notes, so it's just merely headings and then subheadings, but the content underneath you have to actually come to class, and that's what they'll provide you with. So I had colleagues who would then send it to me, and that allowed me to actually be able to know what the content is.
Yeah, so just to touch on two of the things you mentioned, you said it was onerous because you don't have that structure, you don't have anyone to kind of check up on you. I know in high school, your teachers, can be on your case, or there's a very clear structure and they work through things with you. It's more of a collaborative relationship for the most part. And you also have your parents constantly, checking up on you. Whereas, like, for example, with me, I was living on res, and so when you're on res, you're staying on campus, and that's possibly what will happen with a lot of our students, because some of the areas that we deal with are quite far from the universities, and that means that 24/7 you are on your own. No one is checking up on you, no one is forcing you to do work. And I had a similar experience to you. I know in first year, you can get carried away by friends and trying to fit in, and trying to be involved in all the kind of exciting things happening. And I also failed 1 or 2 exams, and I really had to sit down and ask myself, am I here to waste my time and the money of my purses, or am I here to do what I want to do, And I think another thing you touched on is having a support structure. Like, you had friends that sent you notes, and it's also important to have friends that have the same goals as you, that want the same things as you, because you might find university, there's so many, like, there's a wide variety of people, and you'll meet people from overseas, you'll meet people from very wealthy backgrounds, vice versa. And you can get carried away by people who are like, look, are we going out, or are you going to join us? And these people end up being in university, like you said, first year is the best 2 years. Some people spend 6-7 years doing a 4-year degree because their parents can afford it, and so you don't necessarily want to be caught in the trap of following these types of individuals. The second thing you mentioned was the volume of work, and I think I can relate to that. And I think any degree you go into, has a substantially higher course volume and pressure than high school. Like, for example, one of the students didn't do biology before they got into med school. So the first lecture we had was like 150 slides, and it was so much information, the person actually cried. And the rest of us who did biology were like, oh great, like we have upper hand. By like the third, fourth week, like we covered all of high school biology. So then, you know, that can just give you an idea of kind of the amount of work. And so you need to really work consistently.
Yes.
And have a structure. So that's really important. Yeah, let's come back to law itself now. So I'm curious to know, are there any interesting cases where, you know, you've got to help people, or, you know, scenarios that you think would be relevant to the audience?
Off the top of my head, I can think about two. So the one is that was a family dispute. We get a lot of that. Firstly, domestic violence is very serious in our land, in our country. One can actually call it an epidemic at this stage. But there's a spectrum. There's severe cases, and there are cases where all the people need is really somebody just to care, give them a hearing, and advise them. So that's what I spoke to a bit earlier, is that the law is not just black and white. We are not just there to punish somebody who did something wrong. There's various kind of objectives. The retribution is not the only one. There's rehabilitation and all of these other avenues that we can take. So there was this family dispute between a son and a father, absolutely hated each other, came to court, we read the docket, and they were both there on the day, and my seniors then thought, okay, no, this is not a matter where, so upon first appearance, we also like to contact the complainant, being the person who had opened up the case, and kind of find out what is it exactly that you want to get out of this. Because most of the time when you open up a case, there's a lot of anger and animosity at that stage, and then you open up the case, you sleep on it, the next day you come to court and you say, I actually want to withdraw this case because I was just upset and I don't actually want this person to be punished. But there's still that underlying issue that has not yet been addressed, and you will see those people next week or the following week. It's just a recurring thing. So what my colleagues at Athlone had then done is they had then sat them down and kind of figured out what the issues were, and kind of dig deep and play more of a psychology or psychologist type of role, just to find out what are these issues that are brewing in this household. And we ended up not even prosecuting this person, diverting the person, sending them on a course with the anger management kind of course, and 2 weeks or a month after that, they had come back to court, and they had informed us that their relationship is now better than ever, and they are talking terms, they are spending so much quality time together, they're so much happier, and so that's it. It goes much further. We have social workers that are involved at the court that are very hands-on. Athlone Magistrates Court is really amazing. They really take the job way further than just the law. They try to assist people as much as possible, and that's kind of what we stand for. We believe people are much better than the worst thing that they've done, and by just prison is not a sausage machine. We're not just pushing people in and out of there. If you can save somebody, we will try our utmost best to do so. Prison is last case scenario type of situation. So there's also various juveniles. We have a juvenile court as well, with really great prosecutors and social workers who work with these juveniles, assess them, kind of think of ways where they can help these kids be kind of kept away from the criminal justice system, because they are young, they are impressionable, and they can be saved at this early stage. So there was one particular child who the social worker had informed me of. He was a prospective soccer player, and like many colored and black kind of teenagers in our communities, they are surrounded by gangsterism, drugs. These communities are just kind of these negative things have infiltrated our communities, and you feel out when you don't partake in it. And the feeling of wanting to be part of something. He also grew up without a father. He didn't have a fatherly figure. He didn't have somebody to kind of help him through this process. He then took to these people. He landed up in court, and we foresaw that he could be better, and that was not the life for him. And the social workers, together with the prosecutors, then took it upon themselves to assist this youngster, put him on a program, and today he's matriculated. He's now found a job. Wow. And so they also go a bit further, and they check up on these these children that they assist, so as to see whether or not these programs are fruitful, and whether they actually are helping these youngsters. So those are two of the stories that I can think of off the top of my head.
That's really amazing, and I think it really speaks to what we are trying to do at Provision. Yes. You know, because that's something that I also kind of experienced as a youngster in growing up in Mitchell's Plain. And I think for me, I had my gran, and she would always tell me, like, don't do this, don't spend time with this person's not a good influence, avoid these types of situations. And so she constantly told me these things. And so when I was in a situation where something was being done, and there was that kind of peer pressure, or that feeling of, you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to be seen as a certain type of person, I'd always hear her voice in the back of my head. And I think it's so true that a lot of young men, especially in our communities, they don't have strong male role models, or even just male figures that can give them some insight, some guidance on what it means to kind of become a man, or even young girls not having older female role model to say, like, you know, what is a healthy way to transition from being a young lady to being a mature adult. And I think that lack of guidance and mentorship and advice can lead to people being misled by the crowd, by the group, by the environment. And, you know, also, like you mentioned, gangsters, but, you know, there's all different types of elements. It doesn't just have to necessarily be organized crime, but there's different types of elements in the community that prey on these youngsters that don't have a strong social structure. And I think it's really amazing that you guys, you know, it's easy to kind of look at your work and be like, okay, I have this case to do, this is the situation, this is the law, okay, cool, next case, you know what I mean? But you actually take a keen interest in understanding the situation and really trying to kind of solve the root cause. And I think that is really commendable. With the second case that you mentioned, with like the juveniles, I think being a teenager is such a difficult kind of space to be in, especially in these environments, but I think in general, you know? And not having that structure or that guidance, it's so easy to kind of go the wrong way. And even if you guys just kind of dealt with the initial issue, these things reoccur, you know. And so kind of putting in the work to change the trajectory of that person's life, and actually following up and seeing what has transpired because of the efforts you guys have put in, is truly amazing. And maybe you can share some of like the experiences you've had once you've kind of helped someone. Like, how did that make you feel, and does it drive you to kind of want to do more? Maybe you can share some of that.
So it's also like it goes. So as much as the good work we do, it's also these people who these children and accused persons who we attempt to help. There's an obligation on them to take the advice and go home and actually enforce it. So it's also commendable that they and it speaks to the trust that they have in the people assisting them, in that they are now going back to these communities and societies that kind of cause the issue with this kind of new outlook on life and enforcing it. And we hope that it has some sort of ripple effect that can now brew over into the rest. They can now influence others, because we all have agency and we all have the ability to choose and to do better. So that's what we are trying. They are on a daily basis, because of the manner in which everyone in Athlone works. The community would oftentimes come and just they are so grateful. Like any little effort that you put in for them that goes beyond what your role kind of entails. If one had to look at the description of what a prosecutor is on a website, they are so grateful. They will come and just say, "Oh, thank you so much. You know, you really helped me out so much. I travel so far to get here. I just used my last pension money to get here, but I don't even mind doing that because you helped me that much." And just those kind of words of affirmation and kind of being told that you were able to help somebody's life in a beneficial way motivates you to want to do more. And it makes you appreciate the role that you are able to play and the position that you are in. Because a lot of times, especially with professionals, they go on this power trip, and it's more about the power than the influence that they can actually kind of get out of the actions. So yeah, those are these just members of the community who come and just say thank you. They're so grateful, and they wish you the best of luck. They will always say they'll keep you in their prayers, and they speak highly of you, and they will go back to their communities and they will speak about everyone who had assisted them. And what that does is it instills faith and hope within our communities, that if ever they were to encounter something that nobody in life should, that they can trust that the process will be fair and it will be done expeditiously. And that's what we want. We don't want to merely just be paying lip service to the situation. We need to actually kind of let the community know that we have their backs. And if they go and report a crime, we will assist them in every way possible.
That's truly amazing. I think it's a stark contrast to what people assume, you know, and I think just for people to have that insight into what you guys are doing and what you are doing, I think it's so important for people to understand and realize that there are professionals in fields who are passionate about what they are doing and they want to make a difference, and I really want to commend you on that. It's an amazing job. I think even, you know, I can speak for medicine and psychiatry. Similar experience. You have some medical professionals, doctors, who merely are there to, you know, do their job in terms of their job description, you know, and some of them there is that power trip even amongst colleagues, that sort of thing. So you find that everywhere, you know, and I think the people who understand that the influence you have based on your role and how that affects the community, and you know how that affects the broader scheme of things, I think the people that realize that can make a huge difference. And you think that you're only making a difference in that one person's life, but in reality, you know, they remember you, they speak about you, and they instill that sense of trust, you know. Just speaking from a medical perspective, you know, you as a doctor, your demeanor and how you engage people and the empathy that you have and the interest that you have allows you to be a better doctor, because people are more forthcoming with information, and that allows you to resolve whatever issue they have, and that has a ripple effect, you know. So if you help a patient with their depression, they get to be a better mother, a better sister, a better daughter, a better co-worker, you know. And equally, you know, if you are a father and a son, in all the spaces that they engage in, they will be better people, and in that way we change, so many lives. So I think as professionals, it's so important to understand that who you are and the role you play isn't just on your job description. And the end goal shouldn't just be to fulfill your role in order to get paid, but no matter what you do, try and be empathetic, try and understand people and be kind, and really show that you care. I know sometimes it's difficult, so your job's busy, and it can be very draining. I'm sure you've experienced that, but trying to show up in a humanistic way, and really trying to just drive positivity and goodwill. I think it's so important. I think to end off, what advice would you give someone that's considering going into law? Just in terms of maybe how to apply, how to approach when they are in law, and what they can expect to get out of it.
Applying, you just have to the different universities' websites. They all have their own requirements. From what I can recall, pure maths is not a requirement. One could study maths lit, and you'd only have to get about 40% for maths lit in order to get into UWC. I'm not too sure about the other universities. In terms of bursaries, I was unaware of bursaries at the time. This might be different now, but there aren't many, because law firms are privately owned, and not a lot of them are really that big. It's a lot of expenses are paid out of pocket.
Yeah,
they don't really invest in students from such an early stage.
Yeah.
So it's only really once you enter into the realm of law, being first and second year of your studies, this is when bursaries now start becoming available. I was aware of there's this the legal practitioners insurance indemnity fund. They are willing to contribute a portion towards your fees. You just need to get about 60%. But once you are at UWC, they inform you of this. There's certain forms that you fill out, and so that process is made a bit easier. About studying, I would say just be open to learning. It is, as many things in life, very fluid. It's ever changing. Legislation changes daily. There's new laws being put into place. So there's a lot on you to keep up to date and to ensure that you know what is happening within the sphere of law. And law it can be extremely fun. I really enjoy it. I fell in love with it. You can assist people in so many ways. It doesn't even have to just be criminal law. It can be a civil matter, an eviction matter, where you save somebody from being kicked out of their home, or somebody dies and it's a very difficult time in their life, and you assist them through the process of getting the inheritance and sorting out all the issues pertaining to the deceased estate. So within law, there's so many different avenues, and there's so many people's lives that you can benefit in a very positive way. So that would be my advice. If it's what you want to do, if you love helping people, if you love learning, if you love reading, then the law is definitely the career for you. Don't ever let anyone tell you you are not smart enough to do it. I've encountered many dumb lawyers. I'm just joking. So don't let anyone tell you you are not capable of doing what you want to do. If you put your mind to something, you can achieve it. There are external circumstances which may affect it, but if it's what you want, put your mind to it, and it will work out. As they say, everything works out in the end, and if it doesn't work out, it's not the end.
Pause. Thank you so much, Zach, for sharing your wise words. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences, your advice. You are such a wise person, and that's why I knew I had to have you in the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and share with all your friends and family. Also, check us out on our social medias via Provision NGO. Until next time.